All right, let's dive right into this explainer summarizing what has been a massive, frankly chaotic week in global tech news. We've got major smartphone ecosystem shifts, the soaring and hidden costs of the hardware we use every day, all the way to some incredibly spicy corporate artificial intelligence drama. There's a ton of ground to cover today, and it all directly impacts the gadgets sitting in your pocket right now.
So here's how we're breaking it down today. 1. The future of smartphones. 2. Smart glasses and the ongoing privacy battle. 3. Hardware and semiconductor news. 4. The future of digital gaming. And 5. That artificial intelligence drama.
Starting with Section 1, the future of smartphones and global market shifts. Right now, we're seeing a really stark contrast in global mobile ecosystems. Take OnePlus, for example. They are making a massive global pivot. In a pretty shocking retreat, they're completely exiting the US and EU markets. I mean, no new devices will be sold there at all, though existing ones will still get their promised updates. Meanwhile, over in the East, they are totally consolidating to save on development costs by merging their beloved Oxygen OS directly into Oppo's Color OS. It's just a crystal clear sign of how absolutely brutal the global tech market is getting. And all that global economic pressure, well, it's forcing some seriously strange hardware compromises. If you look at the leaked specs for the upcoming Google Pixel 11 Pro, it's actually dropping down to 12 gigabytes of RAM from the previous 16 gigabyte models. Plus, leaks suggest Google might even ditch Samsung modems entirely for MediaTek ones. Then, on the other side of the globe, the newly released Huawei Pura 70 Pro is pushing these massive 6,000 mAh batteries and crazy 200 megapixel cameras, complete with a non-glare screen, but even they are sticking to that exact same 12 gigabyte RAM limit. Moving out to the wider Android ecosystem, there is a super crucial takeaway here for everyday users. Your massive WhatsApp backups? Yeah, they are no longer free. Historically, all those huge photo and video backups didn't count against your 15 gigabyte free Google Drive limit, but now they absolutely do, along with SMS and MMS media. So you're likely going to be forced to either pay for extra storage or start frantically deleting data pretty soon. Also in Android news, Samsung is actively developing a titanium-backed foldable screen to finally eliminate that annoying crease, and Huawei just patented a wild trifold design that unfolds into a massive tablet while keeping the flexible screen completely protected. All right, Section 2, smart glasses and privacy, which is turning into a massive global battle. There is a huge legal divide happening worldwide right now. Over in New York, they are actively criminalizing secret recording with smart glasses in legal and business spaces. Like, you can literally be detained just for wearing them in the wrong building. But meanwhile, the European Union is actually negotiating to ease restrictions on Meta's glasses on the condition that all AI processing stays local, so European data doesn't get shipped off to the US. And right in the middle of all this meta drama, HTC is swooping in, releasing their Eagle glasses. At $500, they are pitching them as a premium, privacy-focused alternative with zero ties to Meta's ecosystem. Let's move to Section 3, hardware news and the hidden economics of semiconductors. 60%. That is a staggering number. It represents TSMC's massive gross profit margin in the second quarter alone. Keep in mind, this is the company that manufactures chips for Apple, AMD, NVIDIA, and practically half the planet. They raked in over $40 billion in revenue in just 3 months, which is largely being driven by this explosive, unbelievable demand for AI chips. Which directly brings us to our next number, $9,000. That is the soaring cost of a single, uncut silicon wafer today. And why is it so high? Because ASML, the European company that makes the incredibly complex machines required to literally print these chips, looked at TSMC making a 60% profit margin and decided, hey, we're going to raise the prices of our manufacturing machines. And of course, that cost gets passed directly down the chain, ultimately landing right on you, the consumer. And in what has to be the most absurd economic flex of the entire week, NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang's famous leather jacket was auctioned off for a cool $1 million at a charity event. Just to put that into perspective for a second, that is the equivalent cost of about 480 incredibly high-end RTX 5090 GPUs, just for a jacket. Jumping back into the consumer PC world, we're seeing some really fascinating oddities. Hardware modders have actually managed to bypass NVIDIA's locks to expose hidden hotspot temperatures on the brand new RTX 50 series cards, and it is revealing some pretty serious cooling inconsistencies. Over in the CPU space, AMD's older 10-year anniversary Ryzen 5800 X3D actually outsold their shiny new 7800 X3D. It just goes to show that consumers are clinging to older, cheaper motherboard platforms right now. We also saw China's Longsan launch a fully domestic GPU, completely bypassing Western architecture altogether. And honestly, brilliantly, MSI introduced a way to literally print OLED monitor displays like an inkjet printer, which drastically reduces both manufacturing costs and electronic waste. Now, if we look toward the really distant future of hardware, we might actually be moving away from the transistor entirely. Think about it. Since 1942, computing has completely relied on the standard silicon transistor, which is basically just an electronic gate that is either open or closed, a 1 or a 0. But researchers just successfully synchronized 105,000 physical oscillators in 45 nanoseconds to process data based on vibration and timing, bypassing transistors completely. It is highly experimental, but it could fundamentally change how computers are built from the ground up. Section 4. The future of digital gaming and digital ecosystems. The digital gaming space is an absolute Wild West right now. Just weeks after Sony announced the end of physical disk drives, PC emulators have successfully started booting PlayStation 5 menus and games like GTA 5. Over in the retro scene, an absolutely insane hardware modder successfully upgraded an original PlayStation 1's RAM from 2 megabytes to 16 megabytes using custom soldering. But on the darker side of things, the FBI literally had to arrest a 21-year-old developer in Florida for completely bypassing Steam security to upload malware disguised as a harmless indie game. And finally, Valve is successfully porting Arch Linux over to ARM architecture, which really paves the way for ultra-efficient standalone Steam VR headsets in the future. But all of this talk about digital ownership brings us to a really profound personal question about those thousands of dollars you've spent on your digital game libraries. Who inherits your digital life when you're gone? Because right now, we are in a massive legal gray area. Interestingly, a landmark Chinese court ruling just allowed a mother to inherit her deceased son's gaming account, complete with all its purchased games and trophies. This sets an incredibly rare legal precedent for digital asset ownership. And it sharply contrasts with platforms like Sony, who just recently updated their policies, threatening to completely delete inactive accounts and all the purchased games on them after just 3 years of inactivity. So the legal definition of what it means to actually own digital assets is about to become a major global battleground. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 5, Artificial Intelligence and Corporate Drama. This story is a massive legal earthquake. Apple is absolutely furious, and they have launched an unprecedented corporate espionage lawsuit against OpenAI. Apple claims that OpenAI systematically poached over 400 of their staff members, including highly senior hardware designers. And worse, they allege these former employees stole confidential engineering schematics, 5-year hardware roadmaps, and get this, even brought unreleased Apple hardware models directly into their OpenAI job interviews. Apple is demanding everything be returned, copies deleted, and they want some heavy financial compensation. And while dealing with the corporate lawsuit of the century, OpenAI also inexplicably dropped a $230 physical keyboard. It's basically a small square device with transparent keys and a little dial, and it's designed entirely just to control Codex, which is their AI coding agent. It's essentially a highly overpriced shortcut macro pad for AI developers. But it proves that AI companies are desperately scrambling to find ways to sell actual physical hardware right now. But honestly, the darkest AI implementation this week comes from Meta. A group of 26 recently fired employees realized they all shared one common trait. They had all taken officially approved medical, maternity, or family leave. Well, it turns out Meta reportedly used an AI algorithm to evaluate productivity. The algorithm simply looked at the raw data, saw a dip in output during their legally approved leave, flagged them as low performers, and recommended them for termination, entirely missing the human context of the situation. Which leaves us with this final, really provocative thought for today's explainer. Are we truly ready for a world where a cold, context-blind algorithm has the absolute power to decide your career simply because you took an approved sick day? It's something we really need to think about. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next explainer.